Hello students, and this is step 1 of chapter 9. Chapter 9 covers fonts and colors. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new style sheet. Okay, so file new, and we're just going to give it some style to the body. And I always like to leave some separation. So we're going to add a font family, colon, and we're going to put Verdana as a font. We're going to put Geneva as a font. We're going to put Arial as a font. And then the font family is sans serif. I'm going to put a semicolon and hit enter. Now, let me just explain how this works a little bit. The font family, you could just put a specific font and semicolon here and it would show that font. But in this case, it's saying the whole entire font family for all three of these fonts is sans serif, so that it's going to look for Verdana first. If the person doesn't have that font on their computer, it'll use Geneva. If it doesn't have that one, it'll use Arial. Okay, so those are all parts of the sans serif. If you just put font family colon sans serif, it would use a default sans serif font, which I believe is Arial. Okay, so that's how fonts work. If you ever want to see the fonts that you have installed on your computer, if you're using Windows 10 and you type fonts and you go to control or just click on view installed fonts, and that'll bring you directly to the installed fonts that you have on your computer. Okay, you can see all of the different fonts that you have here. All right, so you can use those after the font hyphen family colon. You can put any one of these and it'll show up. Okay. All right, so moving along, let's save this. File, save, and obviously this is exactly where we want it. We want it in our journal website. By the way, I hope you unzip the journal folder to get to the files that we need today. Okay, so we're going to call this journal.css. It's going to be our style sheet. So we click save. Okay, so now that's journal.css. So what we have to do now is we have to link journal HTML to journal CSS. First, let's open it up so we can see what journal.html looks like. All right, so here's journal.html. So we're going to change the font to sans serif font family. All right, so we're going to have to add a link to that style sheet. So that's accomplished by typing link type equals text /CSS. Now I'm going to get on the other side of that quote. REL relation to style sheet equals style sheet. And then we have to reference where it is. So href equals, and in this case it's easy because the style sheet is in the same place. So we don't have to do any slashes or slash to a different folder. So it's simply journal.css. Okay, now because we're using XHTML, we have to close this tag with a space /. Okay, so now I'm going to Control S. I'm going to refresh the page, and now you'll see that I have a different font. All of my font, because we used body, so every font that's being used here is going to change to the sans serif font family. Okay? All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add another style. Okay, so I'm going to add another style to, now that we've created this external style sheet, I'm going to add a style to the H1 and H2. So I'm going to go, need a little bit of separation, H1. Oops. And I'm going to use font hyphen size colon 170% semicolon. I'm going to get rid of that close parenthesis. Okay, so now anything that's in an H1 is going to be 170% larger than the H1 is by default. So Control S and refresh. Now you'll notice it got smaller because H1 is 200%. by default. So we just made it a little bit smaller by bringing it down to 170. Another thing you can do is use an EM. So if I were to change this 170% to 1.7 EMs, it's called EMs. It's actually, EMs is actually a relation to the actual size of the font. So this is 1.7 of 100%. Hello students, I paused for a second. I came back because I didn't like the explanation I gave for EMS. EMS is a scalable unit that is used on web document media, and M is equal to the current font size. So for example, if the font size of the document is 12, 1 EM equals 12. 2 EMs equals 24. 0.5 EMs equals 6. So that's what EMs equals. So by changing my code to 1.7 EMs and saving it, when I refresh my page, absolutely nothing will change. So 1.7 EMs and 170% is the same thing. And I encourage you guys to use whichever way you want to use it. So I'm going to go back to 170%. Control S. Okay. And I also want to add a font size to H2. I'm going to go H2, open curly, and I'm going to put font hyphen size colon 130%. Or you could use 1.3 EM, whichever you want. Okay? Now I'm going to Control S to save this. And when I go back, this is an H2 tag, so let's see what that looks like. See how that got smaller as well. Okay? So you can control the size of your font with % or EM. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add another style to the font, which is going to change the font weight. So let's go back here, and we're going to apply this to both H1 and H2. So H1, comma, H2, open curly, and I'm going to make this font hyphen weight, okay, colon, colon, normal, semicolon, and hit enter. Control S, and then when I refresh the page, you'll notice that it made the font normal size instead of bold. Okay? Alright, the last thing we're going to do on this step is we're going to add italic to the block quote. You notice how we have a block quote right here. We're going to make it italic. So we're going to go back to our style sheet, and I'm going to put block quote, open curly, and we're going to put font hyphen style colon italic semicolon. Okay? Control S, and now when we refresh our page, we'll see that turn to italic. Okay? So that's going to end step 1. Thanks for watching.